Well, the situation at the border is still very tense. There's still hundreds, thousands of people being stuck at that border. And one of the difficulties is that there is absolutely no access for humanitarian workers or for journalists or for any external observer to actually accurately assess the situation. We cannot even know how many people are stuck at this border. This makes things very difficult with the temperatures still dropping, freezing temperatures, not only at night now, but also during daytime, with people left without resources and left stuck at that border.
So we still don't have any idea how they're coping, as you say, in that freezing weather, whether they're getting food supplies, whether they are actually getting any medical support if they were in any way injured yesterday.
Well, the difficulty, Beverly, is that, for example, on the Belarusian side, we hear reports of people being given food, being given some warm clothes, but the problem is the no-go zone on the Polish side. It's a 3 kilometers wide zone, which is inaccessible, as I said, for humanitarian workers, for journalists, for external observers. And there, people are stuck with no way of reaching out to a health point, for example. The Polish Red Cross is active outside of that zone, but you'd first have to reach it so as to be able to be helped. And that's all the difficulty in that situation right now.
Yeah. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel and the Belarusian President Lukashenko spoke yesterday. Has there been any progress in how the standoff is going to be resolved?
Well, it was remarkable that the two leaders spoke. It's very rare. They spoke for almost an hour, which was really put forward in the Belarusian media, not so much so in the German media. The German side has been quite discreet about it. All we know is that the two leaders have agreed to de-escalate this humanitarian crisis, but as to how exactly, this is still very dark.
Yeah. And, you know, there's been a lot of focus on the Belarusian side that this has been a provocation against the EU. Is there much focus on how Poland is handling the situation?
There is a focus on that as well, because there are pushbacks happening on both sides, not only the Belarusian side, which prevents the asylum seekers from going back to Minsk as they're stuck at the border. There's also the Polish side, which doesn't allow those people to seek asylum, and that goes against the 1951 Convention on the Statuses of Refugees, where pushbacks are an absolute no-go. This is a convention that both Belarus and Poland signed, so the fact that this is not being respected by an EU country is a huge matter here in Europe.
Yeah. Is there some solution that could allow people through Poland and onto another country in the European Union?
Well, the problem is that Poland so far has refused any humanitarian help, any military help from the European Union. That's not the case of neighboring Lithuania, for example, which is facing the same issue at its borders, but which is benefiting from EU support. The solution would, of course, to let in humanitarian workers in the first place, maybe accepting some help, but from Warsaw's side, there's a discourse that is quite different from other EU countries. For example, with, for example, the defense ministry talking about an attack against its borders. Against, he's talking about an invasion. There's already all along the border a sort of wall, if you will, that is not named like that, but which is constituted of barbed wires, which is 2.5 meters high, so quite difficult to go through. And Poland a few weeks ago has decided that it would build a permanent wall, a 5.5 meters wall all along its border to try and prevent people from seeking asylum from entering Poland.
As I mentioned before, so many have accused Belarus of this being a very pre-planned provocation. The EU has now tightened sanctions on Belarus, but is that likely to ease the situation?
EU leaders actually met on Monday to discuss possible extended sanctions against Belarus, but the sanctions already in place don't seem to have had any effect. Quite the contrary, quite the opposite on Lukashenko's policies. Now we've also seen some significant events with French President Emmanuel Macron talking to Vladimir Putin about the situation. The question is also, what is the role of Russia played in that whole situation, with Russia sending paratroopers at the Belarus border? It's traditionally an ally to Belarus, but Russia also distancing itself from Lukashenko when Lukashenko, for example, threatened the EU to cut the gas supplies this winter. So there's still, a lot of things that are not quite clear yet. What's the role of Russia played in that? To what extent will we see more sanctions? This is still a very open topic here.
Yeah. Emmanuelle, thank you so much for your time. Good to talk.
Thank you.